Celeste Cuffy here with Life Empowered Consulting Services, where our mission is to reach, empower, and motivate others to access and utilize their God given talents and skills, building better families, better companies, and better communities. I am so glad to be with you on today when we will be discussing during our 15 minutes of Living Life Empowered one thing: our story. Have you ever thought about what your story is? Have you ever really just sat down and took a few minutes and thought about your story, your journey, where you are compared to where you were, and all of the processes, the steps, the pains, the joys, the celebrations, the sorrows, all of those things that you went through to get you to where you are today? Have you ever just sat down and thought about it? Have you ever just made a timeline of your life? Significant events, whether good or bad. Have you ever just sat down and thought about, man, I've been through this, I've been through that, I've been through broken hearts, I've been through broken relationships, I've been through grief, I've been through celebrations, I've been through graduations. But have you really sat down and thought about your story? Well, the very first book that I published was actually called Looking Back and Then Moving Forward. And the book had three very simple premises. The first one was to look at life and the lessons. And when I say look at life and the lessons, I mean look at them and learn the lessons. Now, I will also say that it's not enough to know. It's not enough to learn it if you're not going to apply it. So the second principle of the book is to learn life lessons and then apply them. So when you think back to your story, when you think back to your journey, just as I've thought back to mine, the question is, what was life trying to teach me during those experiences? What did I learn? And how have I applied them? So if you were accustomed, for example, to being in abusive relationships, and you learn that that is something that you do not want to partake in, and you, for example, say you learned that at 25, at 30, what kind of relationships are you in? What are you looking for now in a partner, in a friendship that is no longer what you don't want? So how have you learned the lesson? Have you learned the lesson? And how have you applied the lesson? Now, the last thing about the book that I teach is now help somebody else. So now you've went through the story. You've experienced the journey. You've learned something. You've applied that lesson. And now, how can you help another sister or brother along the way? Now, I know someone is saying that the young people don't listen, or the old people don't listen, or they already think that they know everything. Okay, that may be the case, but that does not eliminate your responsibility to at least try to share. Your responsibility doesn't or is not predicated on whether or not they receive it. Your responsibility is your responsibility. So make sure that you're trying to share your information, that you're trying to help them along the way. But now let me ask you a question. Is this tainted information? Is this misinformation? Is this information that is coming out of a place of hurt versus a place of facts? So before you share, again, you're thinking about your journey. You're thinking about your story. And now we're thinking about how we can help someone else. Now you have to ask yourself, will I help with this information or will I hurt? And that is part of your story and helping someone else along the way. Now, there are things I do want you to know about your story, and this is really what I wanted to talk to you about. The first thing that I want you to know is that no one can take your story from you. No one can take your story from you. No one can take your experiences from you. No one can take your education from you. No one can take your knowledge from you. They might can take your job. You might can lose a loved one. You might can lose a piece of jewelry, something of significance. But there are some things that you've gathered that money cannot buy, and nobody can take them from you. And I want you to know that about your story. And I want you to also know that you can use all of this information to help you, to help shape you, to help mold you. How are you leveraging life's lessons? Sometimes the experiences that we go through, they cause us to become fearful. So we've learned the lesson. And as a result of the lesson, instead of trying to love again, instead of applying for a new job, a stretch opportunity, we withdraw back. But that's not the lesson you're supposed to learn. The lesson is how to do what you do well. So if you struggled with love, then now the lesson should be, I want to love again, but not in this manner, not in this abusive manner, but in a wholesome manner. I lost this job, and now I'm applying for this job, and I did not get it. However, I'm learning diligence because I'm going to keep applying. I'm going to keep exposing myself. I'm going to keep growing. I'm going to keep increasing my knowledge so that when the next opportunity does come, I will be prepared. That's what the lessons teach you. That's how you should apply them. So when you think about your experiences, when you think about your story, what have you learned? How have you applied it? How can you help somebody else? And just remember, nobody can take that from you. You know, earlier today, I was thinking about my story. I was thinking about some of the experiences that I had. I was thinking about when I moved into a new home and my mortgage payment tripled, and then I got laid off. I thought about that today. I thought about how I was going through a very difficult period in my marriage, and I was ready to walk away, but I didn't. And now we're getting ready to celebrate 25 years. I thought about that today. And that's all my story. And so I also want you to know that while it's great that you know my story, and it's great that you know your story, as you're sharing it, share the how. Share how you didn't give up. Share how you reallocated your time to the things that were most important. Share how you kept learning. Share how you had to have difficult conversations. Share how you had to push yourself. Share how you had to have sleepless nights. Share how you had to trust God, how you had to step out on faith. Because that's all part of your story as well. And when we get finished telling our story, someone's going to want to know, but how did you do it? How did you come out of that situation? How did you save your marriage? How did you go from losing a job to having your dream job? How did you go from losing a job to moving into a career, to being an entrepreneur? How did you do that? That's what people are going to want to know. So if you never tell them your story, because remember, it's your story. But the things that you walked away with as a result of that story, as a result of your experience, help somebody with it. Tell them that they can make it. Tell them that if they just hang in there and not give up, and to speak life and have good people in their presence. Tell them to be careful who they listen to. Then you will be able to help effectively other people. So this is your 15 minutes of living life empowered. And again, the lesson for today, the topic for today is your story. And if I were to ask you what is the activity, what is the life empowered moment for today, I would say live the lessons from your story in such a way that others can learn as well. So thank you very much for your time. You have a fantastic day and an amazing week. And remember, live life empowered. Take care. Goodbye.